Hi, everyone. Patricia Dancing Elk Walls here. And I wanted to share some things with you. This is my channel called Earth Woman. And it's called Earth Woman because that is my life's work, working with Mother Earth. Thank you for joining my channel. I wanted to talk to you today about the language of light. And so most people at this point know about the language of light, but there's still some who don't know about the language of light. And I receive questions almost every day. I get inquiries, I get consultations for people who are just becoming aware of the language of light and want to know more information about it. Some people are beginning to transmit it in one way or another, and they don't understand it. They're looking for more information. So I thought I'd make a video for everyone here. And as you know, what's offered on this channel, what's offered on Conscious Awakening Network is not offered anywhere else. And so you're getting information that is not offered anywhere else. Yes, I do offer information about the language of light in other places, but not this, because as a channel, and I am what's considered a 24/7 channel. Yes, I'm a human being. Yes, I have my own consciousness, my own way of interpreting things. Yet, I won't say but, there's always a but we're going to say yet in this case. Yet, I am also a channel. And so much of what I share with people, much of what I talk about, is not coming from my everyday egoic consciousness. Much of it, and we're talking probably 90% of it, is coming from a higher aspect of me. Because I don't believe that anything comes from outside of us. I do believe that everything is coming from me, a higher aspect of me. Because here I am in this third dimensional dense body, living in a third dimensional world full of poverty, trauma, and drama, full of judgments and criticisms and all the good things, but I'm naming all the bad things for a reason. Because I'm living in this environment, I am influenced very often. My humanness is very often influenced by this environment. And so I purposely agreed to be a channel because I didn't want to be at the whim of this environment all the time. And so I agreed to be a channel so that I could receive a higher quality of information, and so that I could share and be of service and offer a higher quality of information. And so, so here I am. And those of you that have joined me before, those of you that work with me, have heard me say, I'm a storyteller. And so there's some things that you just can't get away from. And that's one of those things for me. I just cannot get away from that basic part of my human personality where I want to tell a story in order to share information. And so sometimes I get long-winded, but I always come to the point of things, and there's a reason for the long-winded explanation, because as one of my friends would say, even in one word, there are um, thousands of information, thousands of bytes and downloads of information. The same as in the language of light. I mean, people have very often asked me, can I translate the language of light? And for me, the answer is no, because my understanding is that each word, each click, if you're drawing it, each dot, each curve, each hand movement, each body movement, each tiny increment of anything contains thousands of downloads of information and frequencies and alignments, and whatever is required at the moment is what is received. And so you can't translate that into one human word. And so the same for me applies as far as human words are concerned. A human word may be composed of 5 letters, but those 5 letters and the sounding of those 5 letters is more than just the 5 letters. It's more than just the sounds that you hear. Sorry, I'm playing with something. I have to distract myself. It includes more than just the 5 letters, the sounds that you hear, the syllables, the dialect. It includes all types of information and alignments and codes and frequencies. Because, and this all goes into alignment with what I know to be the language of light, right? So what I know to be the language of light is that it is our first language. It is the universal language. It's the language that everything speaks, everything that lives. And to me, everything lives. And so light language is our first language. And many of you have heard me say this before, and that's okay that you've heard me say this before. But perhaps there is a code or a frequency included in the explanation this time that you didn't get the first time. So there's nothing wrong with repeats. So my understanding is that the language of light is our first language, our universal language, and it's the language that everything speaks. The birds, the bees, the otherworldly beings, the fish, the land, the sand, the stones, the trees, the stars, the wind, the sun, everything speaks the same language. We just interpret it differently. We just receive it differently. And so, for instance, there are birds outside of where I'm at right now. There are birds, and they're chirping and they're singing. That is their light language. And that is their language, their soul language. And this is how they are expressing it right now. They're expressing it through chirps and tones and sounds and songs. And human beings, we are expressing through dialects and words, you know, and also through song and symbols and everything. We're all expressing it in the way that we would normally express. And there are some of the people in my community who, when they express the language of light, they express it as chirps, such as the birds. And so somebody would say they're channeling the bird tribes. They're channeling the star nations that come from the birds, right? Or the, I forget what you call the star nations that are birds. Anyway, some people would say that they are channeling the star group that came here as birds. Could be true, because the language of light belongs to everything. And so you've probably heard me say before that I love this story. It makes sense to me, and so I share it. And until it stops making sense to me, I'm going to share it. So the story goes that we went into the Tower of Babel as a human race. We went into the Tower of Babel, all speaking the same language. And when they say all speaking the same language, they mean all, everything. Again, the birds, the stones, the trees, the humans, all speaking the same language. And when we came out of the Tower of Babel, we were divided. We were speaking different languages. And my human perception of that is it was meant to divide us and separate us. Now, some people see that as a negative, right? There is the belief that nothing happens to us that we don't agree to. And if you can conceive of that, then you can also conceive that we agreed. We agreed for the separation. We agreed that the separation would serve a purpose in our existences and our experiences. And so we agreed to losing our first language and being separated. We agreed to not be able to communicate with one another. And I very often hear people say, I would love to be able to talk to the birds. I would love to be able to communicate with the trees. I would love to be able to communicate with the stars and the whales and the dolphins and my beloved horse. I would love to be able to communicate with them, but you can, right? Because we're all speaking the same language. There really is only one language. And the beings are telling me that's the language of love. There really is only one language, but we interpret it differently and we express it differently. Back to it. And so when we came out of the Tower of Babel, we were all speaking different languages. We were all expressing ourselves in a different way. And so we could no longer communicate with each other, i.e., separation, division. And we each went our separate directions. So how does that play into the language of light? I have had people who will listen to a transmission either from me or somebody else, and they will say, it really sounds Italian, it sounds Chinese, it sounds African, it sounds, and some people will say, I'm channeling the Pleiadians, I'm channeling the Arcturians, I'm channeling the bird tribes. Well, it's all true. It's all true. I used to not believe that, but I've come to understand or understand that it's all true. We are channeling those different aspects of language because it's all fragments of the one source language. And that was sometimes I say understanding, sometimes I say understanding because of programming. We're programmed to say that we understand something, but think about that word. When you understand something, I mean, do I need to explain that to you? But if you understand something, that's different. And as one of my brothers would say, what about when you overstand something? What about when you equal stand something? So there, again, words, programming, language. Back to it. And so whenever you hear someone say, when you're transmitting light language, it sounds French to me. It sounds like an old Italian grandmother. It sounds Native American. It sounds, whatever. It's not untrue, because when we went into the Tower of Babel, we were all speaking the one source language. And what I know to be true for myself at this particular moment, and again, that might change because we are always in motion. We are always learning, expanding, gaining more knowledge and experience. And so right now for me, my knowing is that the one source language is telepathic at heart. But there's a but, because beings, different beings, not just humans, beings feel the need to communicate vocally. Then it is transmitted through whatever vocal expression or whatever expression that being has in their basic nature. Human beings, in our basic nature, we communicate through our vocal cords. Birds chirping, crickets making their little noise, whatever that is, fish, snakes hissing, dolphins clicking, so on and so forth, right? So everything has its way of communicating in whatever form it's in, considering that we're not always human when we come into form, right? And so you have been everything. You have been everything that I just named. And so you have expressed yourself in all those different ways at times. So you have always transmitted the language of light in whatever form you were in, which is why some people say that they can understand birds, they can understand whales, they can understand dogs, they can talk with the trees and the little people, and they can talk with insects, or they can talk with the wind people, because they've been that, because it's natural to them, and because they align with that part of themselves. So, language of light is everything. We have been everything. We have expressed ourselves in all of those different ways. And so, of course, it feels natural to us. I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, so here we are. Sorry about that. And so we basically all speak the same language. We just express it in different ways. So that brings us to, let me give you a transmission and see where that takes you in your understanding of things. So I'm going to give you a transmission, and then I'll come back and I'll see what new information comes to me on that. So hold that thought. As I like to say, relax, receive, and release, because I've found that when people are receiving a transmission, that they very often will have thoughts, feelings, even body feelings. They will have remembrances of a past event. A person will come up in their thoughts. all of that is things coming up to be released. So just say, release, let them go, because if you focus on it, you are holding it into place. We're very strong, amazing beings. And so you don't want to hold it. You want to let it go. So there you go. Let's see what they have for us. Be babaye na nake ohle be awahishele ichiki unami ate alaye le pako I be on de be in chikira de be little moina na ma ata ye beke o ke de be anta da de be on de be one ma shile chikera roin baka tere de be aloe mama be pepe aki e pepo de peki chikolu mama ni itu alaye o te de ba ye de beki o le be hoe mama ye hen chi ko li beki papaya Dode de biata il rebea wen moe mamaie che è o che è feo da indor di bita de bo papai entakai de bo yesho le bea chaka no me de bakia le de be ko le bo che tarari de be a loro de miana na mai etale de ate le be che ko un po iba ko mama mi hende de oi de bai ele o yebash Shoshia mai nena maki ilipiki hama ape apa ye te kara buhi bahama mai in. What did be we shele a shokolo robuin da hadari roli be apa by yen make kopia hapai and a here roi in the moenama. Gee, a padera cade de be a colorui di biana and mane de day while aware by yet that the cavoli be sholi beta anama. Hemamui hama hapaya. Tere be a caiel, o here pahi wa shelo e chipike a unco boy mama in minute be wet tire. Dere rohi pai, the repike will be wished, the will be a tire, a more and ma pa ear papaya. At that other the bear color to be help him mahama and enemy eto. What did it who libi my ish to will be hatara, the be no way a man and a more epai at the key uka. Te hohipi hapapai de bohish, shutipi hatada de beon no moi mahapai atakaye pepe. So whenever I'm, because we agree to be a channel for this information, whenever I am transmitting the language of light, I am out over here. I'm over here watching and listening and observing what's being transmitted. And sometimes it is what we call a dialect because human beings don't have, we have to name everything. To understand it, to understand it, we have to name everything. We have to identify it and break it down and understand it, manipulate and control it as well. And so there is that part of all of us. And so as I'm transmitting light language, channeling it, and I'm listening to it and observing it, there are times when I go, oh, that's a different one. I've never heard that dialect before. And we call them dialects because, again, we have to name it something. And that one that just came through, I have never heard before. And what I've learned about that is that whatever is required, whatever dialect, whatever fragment, and maybe this will help. What I know to be true for me at this particular moment is that, again, the way that we are expressing the language of light is only a fragment of the one source language, because again, at its heart, it is not vocal. At its heart, it's telepathic because it's frequencies. And we transmit it, express it in words and dialects and sounds. And you very often heard people say, for instance, in many of the languages of the world, there may be one country, but everyone in that country doesn't speak their language in the same way. And they identified as dialects, right? So Spanish, for instance, there may be different areas of Spain where the language is different, and one person from North Spain can't understand someone from South Spain because the dialect is different. There are little nuances in the language that are different depending on the region. And Africa, Native American, right? American Indian. There are so many ways to identify that now. And there are the Lakota who can't understand the Choctaw. And there are the Incas who can't understand the Alaskan Inuits. I mean, you know, they're all considered Native American. They're all considered American Indian, but they can't understand each other because the dialects, the nuances of the language are different. And so it's the same when we are, because all of those are fragments of the one source language, but it's still the one source language. And so what I know to be true is that in agreeing to be a channel for this language, I agree to channel whatever is required at any given moment in time by whoever is going to, or whatever is going to receive this transmission. So I'm sitting here transmitting for all of you in human form. There's a but while I am consciously transmitting for you on this video, in my environment, there is my dog, there are the birds outside, there are the insects outside and maybe in. There are the tree people, there are the crystals, the stones that are here in my space, in my home. So I'm not just channeling for you. I'm channeling for everything. I'm channeling for anything that requires the frequency that comes through my channel at this moment. And so it is always, for me, it is always going to sound different. I have noticed that there are little nuances. There's a motorcycle going by, so I apologize if you hear that for the disruption. But there are times when I can hear myself and I can hear a repeat of a dialect or a phrase or a word, because we're going to call them words, that I've used in the past, kind of thrown into the transmission. I don't know at this point. I don't have an explanation for that. I will at some point have an explanation for that. But right now, this second, I don't, because I'm always expanding. I'm always learning something new, because energy never stands still. If it does, it's dead. And so we are not dead energy. We are constantly living, growing, expanding. Our cells are constantly dying and renewing and replenishing our blood supply. The air that's around me never stops moving. If it does, it's dead. The water never stops moving. If it does, it's dead. And so water and air are constantly moving around us in different forms, different variations. The trees, there's water running through the trees. The air moves through the leaves and moves the water through the tree. And so, same with our bodies. Our bodies, even though we're sitting in one place, appearing as though we're not moving, our bodies are in constant movement because we are constantly breathing. And as we are constantly breathing, we are constantly moving blood, air, water, molecules, and particles through our bodies. So we're in constant movement all the time. And in that way, we are constantly receiving information and giving information all the time. Long way to say, at some point, I'll receive an explanation as to why I can identify repeated syllables or words or sounds in my transmissions. Hopefully that has brought up some questions for you. So what I'd like to offer you is for you to write down those questions and to reach out to me, and I will answer them in the best way that I can. You can email me at support@patriciawalls.net, and I will answer those questions in the best way that I can, given time. And so let's talk about the way that light language is transmitted. So what I know to be true at this point in my growth and expansion is that light language is transmitted by humans. We're only talking about humans here. Is transmitted vocally through words, right? Dialects, words, dialects, symbols, writing the language of light. And I don't have within reach right now my book, but I did write a book. It's called Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language, and also Galactic Frequencies of Light, and also the book of 144 codes. So another way to transmit the language of light is by writing the symbols, also by hand movements, also by body movements, two different things, believe it or not, and singing light language. So for me, when I sing light language, it was explained to me that it is accessing a higher frequency of the language of light, a higher expression. And the beings described it as the solfeggio frequencies, right? So the solfeggio frequencies are higher frequencies, higher musical notes that are meant to heal and align. And so, for instance, listening to Beethoven and listening to some of that, is it the megahertz? Anyway, listening to that, you get a different level of frequencies and energy coming into your environment that affect you in a different way than it would if I were speaking light language, vocalizing it, or if I were using my hands or my body. And then there is sound. And so the sound tools such as the drums, the harps, the tingshas, the gongs, and the crystal bowls. Those are all, and wind chimes. Those are all different. It's a different expression of the language of light, a higher expression than vocal. And so, and then lastly, the last way that I was shown that we as human beings transmit the language of light is just emitting it, which brought me to the realization, because I am earlier in my life, I was a Reiki master teacher, and in learning about that, in practicing those principles and those teachings of transmitting energy to people using my hands. And also part of the teachings was that there are times when we simply emit Reiki. And so why wouldn't that be considered another form of the language of light? It's a consideration that I have. It is a knowing and an understanding that I have that I could simply just emit these frequencies of healing and alignment without outwardly consciously doing anything. And one of the ways that I can justify that in my own life is in for you as well, probably. Aren't there times when people will say that they just feel better being around you? I mean, aren't there times when, I mean, as a grandmother, so I'm a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother. I'm a great-grandmother of 4 children now, and I don't get to see the great-grands very much, but my grandchildren, when they were small, their mother used to bring them, 2 in particular, their mother used to bring them over when they were sick, because she was working. She had things that she had to do. And so, of course, I tried to help, as, a good mom would. And so she would bring the grandchildren over to me, hold that thought. And they would spend the weekend with me. And when they went home, they were better. And grandma was on the sofa for about 3 days because I had expended all of my energy on them, making them better. And so that helps me to understand when I am told that sometimes we just emit that healing energy. And again, some people relate that to Reiki and energy healing. But what if it's just another expression of the language of light? And so what else do I need to share about that? So I want you to think about that for yourselves, right? How might you be expressing the language of light in your life? Do you find yourself talking with your hands? Do you find yourself moving, like moving your body? Like I know that sometimes when I am giving a talk, giving a presentation, I find myself rocking. And I used to think it was because I was a mother, a grandmother, and I'm used to rocking babies, But I find myself moving whenever I'm giving a presentation. It used to really bother me. I thought, why can't you just stand still? You look crazy moving around like that. But now I understand that I am moving. I am working with the energy. I'm flowing with the energy that group that I'm speaking with, the environment that I'm in, I am moving energy. And so I don't feel so bad about it now, although I still do try to control myself. So do you find yourself humming at different times? I have one person in my spiritual circle that hums, and she's noticed that whenever she's just called to hum at different times, different places. And she's noticed that when she does this, that she can see things or observe things shift and change around her, people, places, and things, right? Maybe there's a baby crying in the distance, and maybe she's in the store and there's a baby crying and she starts humming and the baby stops. Or there are animals around, and they react to that sound. There's a lot of explanations for it. So do you find yourself humming at different times that you think are inappropriate or odd? Do you find yourself moving your hands? Do you find yourself, what do they call it, doodling, writing symbols that you don't know what they mean? Do you find yourself speaking in what you think is another language that you don't understand? Do you find yourself singing, toning, all of those things? What have you noticed? Because sorry, my allergies are kicking up. I have all the windows open and it's beautiful. It's 75 degrees here right now. And apparently there's something in the air. So what have you noticed? Because when I give talks, sometimes it's to 10 people, sometimes it's 50 people, sometimes it's 400 people. And a lot of times people will show up that don't know anything about the language of light, but they're curious about it and they want to come see what's this about. And in the sharing, in the moment of sharing, they find that they can relate to it. I can see it on their faces sometimes. Sometimes they'll verbalize it if they have a chance to talk to me, but a lot of times I can see the recognition on their faces, and and they're going, I do that all the time. Now I don't feel so stupid. Now I don't feel so crazy and odd, and they'll reach out to me at some point. But through that explanation, can you align with any of that? Can you relate with any of that? And if so, how do you? And now that you know, what are you going to do with it? So my advice is use it. Allow it to come out. Allow it to express itself more and see what happens. Because like everything else, it's like a muscle, right? The more that you use it, the more fluid it becomes, the more natural it becomes. Because at first it feels kind of odd. Think anything, when you first began to walk, when you wanted to learn how to dance and you were kind of clumsy at it at first, and now you're like amazing because you had to learn how to relax with it. You had to learn how to allow it to flow and become used to it and comfortable with it. It's like that with light language, the language of light. The more that you use it, the more that you allow it to express itself through you, the more comfortable you will become with it. Which brings up another thing. So in one of the talks that I was giving, there was a sister who was there with me. It was a joint event, and she was talking about how she expresses light language and how I express light language, and our experiences. And it was two different things. It's very often two different things because we are individuals. And when she described how she expresses light language, she tells the story of some 30 years ago that suddenly she just felt like, her throat was so full, and she felt as though she had to just start speaking or she was going to choke. And so she did. And she said it was just like a fire hose. And that now, whenever she's noticed that we're going to use the word turns on, it turns on like that she can be somewhere and she will get that same feeling of, I just got to let this out, or my voice, my throat is going to explode. And so she just has to start. And she said that if she's around a person, that she will just, almost apologize, but she will say, I have a message for you. Would you be open to receiving it? And if they say yes, then she just starts, right? And lets it run its course. And it's not like that for me. So for me, I have an awareness. So look, there's my medicine. I have an awareness that I need to allow this expression to come out in whatever way it comes out. I talk with my hands too, if you might have noticed. So I feel as though I need this expression to come out. And there are times when I could be in the market, in public, and it's become sort of a joke that I can be in the grocery store, right, and feel as though I need to transmit this energy somewhere. And I will pick up a can and start reading it. Well, I'm not really reading it, but I will I'll pick up a can. Look, Florida water. I'll pick up a can and just start allowing light language to come verbally, to flow. And the people around me don't know that I'm not reading this can in some grandma language, some crazy hippie grandma language. Yes, I get the looks, but they don't know. And so I will just allow it to flow. Or sometimes I'll put my telephone up to my ear and pretend that I'm speaking on the telephone and just let it rip. Sometimes when I'm driving, I will feel as though I need to transmit some codes. And so I just let it rip. And one of my friends in the community said I was crop dusting light language, driving 70, 80 miles down the road and just dropping light language codes and frequencies along the way. So allow the light language to flow in whatever way it flows for you. If you have become aware that you move, that you dance, and that you can feel the shift in the air when you do that, allow that to happen more often. Put on some music if you need to hide what you're doing. Put on some music and just allow it to go. Nobody knows what you're doing but you. If you need to write it, allow the symbols to just come out. Remembering, and I don't remember if I covered this before, but for me, there's no translation for the language of light. My voice does this sometimes when I need to transmit light language. So let's just go ahead and do that so that I can stop coughing. Me hampai and the rokoi libihe shu unda. Me we ma ba ye he shele o koi ma. Tuele be sho lo koi imiki imbe we ma. Da me am ba ye ende koi ele be hua. Ambe amike eweli ki ichu. Ta me wa me he shele ihikue be eba. Duili apakia amiki. A ye pe ohoi ma a. Ui pe o he shele ichiki o me ke ama. E waha ma ye ne me ke o ko ipe awan da ye ne mea. U e me shele e sho o ko im. Ma ye na me e wai pe e. Ku e pe o him ba e no o. Nui I ma a ye ne ma I cho ko e le I wa. A ne me unde a le e ku e pe wa. Ushte ele anko e mamu'i. Na me hampai e tue ele. Chue ele piki uku e ba. I forgot what I was telling you. So during the light language, we call them a gallery, but the presentation, there was a woman there, and it sounds like a challenge, but it was a question, and I'm okay with questions because questions make me listen for the answer. Questions prompt me to allow information to come in as a channel. And so she had a question, and the question was really to my partner. So the question was, if you're not in control of when the light language comes through, how is it that you can do this event and you can time it, you can structure it such as we're going to give you an explanation for what we know light language to be, and then we're going to allow questions, and then we're going to give you a transmission, and then we're going to allow questions, and then we're going to give another transmission. So the lady was saying, how can you structure this presentation if you're not in control of the light language? And that was a good question. For me, it didn't, for me, there was no challenge because I am kind of in control of when I allow it to come out. My partner, not so much. Yet, she was in control of it during the presentation, wasn't she? And so I did what I always do when there are questions that I don't know the answer to. I go inside, I ask my beings, show me the answer to this. How do I respond to this question? What is the knowing that I need to share? And what they showed me was my particular process. And they want me to share that with you. Doesn't have to be your process, but it may help you in understanding. It may help you in your own practice and knowing. So I'm going to share what I know about my own process. And so what the beings showed me is that probably because of my past practice in hypnosis, right? So in hypnosis, one of the things that I do and that I talk to my clients about is that I during the induction phase, I ask them to take their little ego person and set it to the side and ask it to just be an observer and not to interfere in what's coming through, so that the person can receive without criticism, without judgment, without blocks, that keep them from allowing themselves to express what they're receiving. Because very often in hypnosis and journey work and any of that, I found that as human beings, we will say, that's odd. I'm not going to, that can't be true. I'm just making that up. And so I'm not going to share that, because that's crazy. So for me, it was like working that muscle. It was like programming myself to receive without judgment, right? And so what the beings showed me was that. They showed me that I do that when I'm channeling light language, that I consciously put my little Patricia over to the side and tell her, just sit there and observe, no interference, no judgments, no criticisms, just receive. Just allow it to flow. And so that is what I do. I know that's what I do because I've often said that because I'm channeling, I'm not in control of it. I'm over here observing it going, that's odd, but I'm not controlling it, right? I'm allowing its expression without stopping it, without blocking it, without controlling it. And so that's what we do as channels. I mean, I do that with my intuitive work whenever I do readings for people, and I have to do that with my intuitive work. I have to allow the information to flow without my question, without my judgment, without my control of it. Otherwise, I'm doing the person that I'm reading for, I'm doing them a disservice, because it's not my business what information is shared. It's not my place to judge it or control what information is shared. It's my job just to allow the information to come through. And so as a channel of the language of light, same principle applies for me and probably for you, right? And so as you are opening yourself to be a channel for the language of light, just consider having that principle that it's not your business to judge it. It's not your business to control it. Your job as a channel is to allow it to flow in whatever expression comes through for you. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad that you joined me. And hopefully what I have shared has helped you understand or understand your own expression for the language of light. I hope that you join me for some of my other videos. So one of my joys is sharing the language of light with people, but I also have other gifts and tools that I share. One of those is the Hall of Records, and so I will be sharing journeys and information on the Hall of Records here. I may even share a course, because I give courses in the Hall of Records. And so I may offer a course here in the Hall of Records. So watch for that, please, if you're interested. I also offer courses and share with people about cleaning your fields of entities and parasites and hooks and cords and contracts and agreements and curses and hexes and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So if you're interested in learning more from me, check back with my channel. So again, thank you for joining. I look forward to hearing from you. You can reach out to me, support@patriciawalls.net, and I'll answer in the best way that I can, if I can answer. And until then, I'll see you next time.